Locked On Podcast Network presents Locked On Sports Today.
Daniel Jones beats out Anthony Richardson to earn QB1 honors for the Colts. Also, Joe Flacco has taken the reins as the Cleveland Browns starting quarterback. And which fantasy receiver should you ride or die with? I'm Peter Bukowski, starting your day with the can't-miss stories and biggest debates in sports. You're Locked On Sports Today.
Searching all major sports. Found.
Let's start with the biggest story.
It's been a busy 24 hours with NFL teams announcing starting quarterbacks. The Indianapolis Colts have decided it's going to be Daniel Jones, not Anthony Richardson, to take the reins here. And this is not hey, it's going to be Daniel Jones for now. No, this is the job. Shane Steichen said he does not want Daniel Jones looking over his shoulder. Jake Arthur from Locked On Colts joins me now. And Jake, why?
Well, I think for one, Shane kind of refuses to throw anyone under the bus ever. So we also heard that last year. And, Joe Flacco was mostly awful in these two starts that he had. And then, hey, here comes Anthony Richardson.
Funny that Joe Flacco is the other quarterback that got announced as the starter.
Of course, yeah. Joe Flacco didn't have a leash on him either. So, no, this is very much a thing where, if it starts to go south, like I think we'll see Anthony at some point. Like if you're in the latter half of the season, you're like a couple games under 500, but there's still time to like maybe get back into the wild card race or something. I think that makes sense to see Anthony again, as long as Daniel hasn't been performing well. But I mean, from Shane's perspective, he said this is basically all about the operation of the offense. Basically, Daniel is someone he can trust to be consistent, to make all the correct checks at the line and get guys where they need to be, and like kind of all of the intricacies of playing the quarterback position that we can't all always see. It's not a cop-out answer, but it is unfortunate that it's something we can't look at and be like, well, this guy's outperforming him, because we don't know. A lot of it's behind closed doors. A lot of it is on the practice field. Because, through the preseason and training camp, I think Anthony Richardson did enough to earn the starting job. And Shane Steichen even basically said, we've seen improvements in the areas we wanted him to improve. So one of the things we asked essentially today was like, what could Anthony have done better? And it's not so much about Anthony as much as it is Daniel. And the more I think about this, I just come back to this move is about Shane Steichen trusting Shane Steichen. Mm-hmm. If he picks Anthony Richardson, he has to be very reliant on Richardson not to revert back to his some of his natural ways, which comes with peaks and valleys. Like we've seen some really low moments from Anthony just doing his thing, but that's also the guy that gets you these fourth quarter comebacks and digs you out of holes. Or the throw that went viral against the Packers on Saturday. Exactly. Yeah. Like that's Anthony just doing his thing, because honestly, Gould was probably not the correct read on that play, to be totally honest with you. But it works because he's got that arm talent that he can just make all these different plays. But with Daniel Jones, Shane Steichen has a guy who is going to do like exactly what he asks him to. And I think a lot of people in that building are really looking for redemption for 2023, where they were simply a fourth down in the red zone away from not only making the playoffs, but winning the AFC South with Gardner Minshew at quarterback. And Daniel Jones is far more Gardner Minshew than Anthony Richardson is. It's boring, but for the most part, it's a guy that is going to do exactly what Steichen asks. So this, I think, is Steichen believing in his system and having a distributor out there to run the system more than trying to rely on reining in this guy with these high peaks and valleys.
What you'll also hear coaches say is, I don't just have to make one decision. It reflects the work that 52 other guys in that locker room are putting in. And if we're putting a guy out there for development, which is what the team builders will say they have to do, coaches will say, look, I can't look those guys in the eyes and say this guy gives us the best chance to win when he doesn't. But I think if you're going to criticize this move, you're going to go, well, but Anthony Richardson, when you drafted him, you knew he was going to take time, and the only way he's going to get better is time on task. And this is coming from an administration in Chris Ballard and potentially Shane Steichen that are feeling a lot of pressure to win here.
Yeah. And when you ask them things like that, and, do you regret the way this all was handled? I think they just kind of messed this up from the beginning, and they don't really have a great answer other than, they can point to like the injuries causing him to, that cause hiccups in his development and everything. But the truth of the matter is they wish they would have sat him early on in his career rather than starting him right away. Because
if they
now
had Daniel Jones as a rookie, maybe things would have been different.
Yeah.
Richardson was a rookie, I mean.
Yeah, and then you start Gardner Minshew instead. But you can't put that back in the bag. Like, now that you've given the guy the starting reins, anytime you bring him back now, it's a benching. It's a confidence thing now that you're showing that you're not confident in the kid. And so it's hard to come back from this now, because this isn't technically a benching, but it is. I mean, because the guy went out and accomplished pretty much everything you asked him to, and now you say he didn't win the job because this guy who has started 50, 55 or, whatever is like 50 more games than him in the NFL.
Right.
Yeah, he's more savvy at the line of scrimmage and before the snap. Of course he is. Like a guy like Anthony Richardson would have more in that catalog and that Rolodex too if he had started 70 games in the NFL. So it's tough. There's reports now that Anthony's agent isn't, the happiest dude in the world right now. And I think they've got reason to, because again, what more could Anthony have done? He did the things you asked him to do. He showed that there's more upside with this offense. It's a tough one. I mean, they keep preaching that this isn't the end of the line with him, but how is it not? Like, he only gets back on the field if Jones is awful or gets injured. Like, by design, you don't name a starter with another guy in mind coming in later.
Right.
Like they said, this is for 2025, which again, that's on shaky ground because we've heard that before. But I mean, how are you not saying this is the end of the line?
You can stay up to date all year on the Indianapolis Colts by subscribing to Locked On Sports Today and Locked On Colts on YouTube or your favorite podcast app. Your Locked On Sports Today coming up. Joe Flacco also got the nod in Cleveland in his quarterback battle. Before we get to that, Sophie Cunningham is out for the rest of the season. Most people can't name all their financial accounts or even what they're worth, whether it's a 401k or properties or investments. And when you don't have the full picture, you can end up leaving money on the table. That's why there is Monarch Money. It's an all-in-one personal finance tool that brings your entire financial life together in one clean, easy-to-use interface on your laptop or your phone. Monarch does the heavy lifting for you. You can link all your accounts in minutes, see clear data visuals, get smart categorization of your spending, and finally feel in control of your money without ever touching a spreadsheet. I linked all my accounts to Monarch and immediately spotted a few subscriptions I wasn't even using. Canceling those all can save you money every month. Don't let financial opportunities slip through the cracks. Use code LOCKEDONNFL at monarchmoney.com in your browser for half off your first year. That's 50% off your first year at monarchmoney.com with code LOCKEDONNFL. The Indiana Fever might need more than a hardship contract at this rate, maybe a miracle. Sophie Cunningham is now their third guard lost for the season in just 2 weeks, joining Ari McDonald and Sydney Colson on the shelf, while Caitlin Clark is still out with a groin injury. Indiana signed guard Shea Petty to patch things up, but with the Fever clinging to sixth in the standings, their depth chart is already very, very thin. Over in the NFL, the Saints are taking their quarterback decision down to the wire.
Still no starting quarterback announced for the New Orleans Saints. Has walked to the car, and I'll tell you all about it. We asked Kellen Moore during his press conference after Tuesday's practice if he was ready to name a week one starter yet, and he said no, they're going to take this through another week. So another week of practices, another game as well up against the Denver Broncos in the preseason. So both of these quarterbacks will continue to battle it out, and I think it's a good thing. You just allow them the opportunity to keep battling. You allow them the opportunity to make sure that everyone knows that nothing here is given, whether it be off a preconceived notion or recent performances and things like that. You've got to take everything into consideration in order to make the right choice, and it looks like that's what Kellen Moore is looking to do here. So we'll see where things go. A couple of returns for the Saints as well. Jasheem Davis, the defensive end, was back on the practice field. Devin Neal, the rookie running back, practiced in a limited capacity, according to Kellen Moore. The Saints also got JT Gray back out on the field as well. So some good movement there in terms of health and some good progress, but no progress yet when it comes to making the quarterback conversation an old one and making that decision. So we'll see where things go in the coming days.
In Major League Baseball, the Cubs tried to sneak through a doubleheader with the Brewers and make up some ground in the NL Central.
Now that's what can happen when you have a little bit of life, a little bit of youth, a little bit of juice injected into your ball club. I'm Sam Olber from the Locked On Cubs podcast, and the Cubs, led by Owen Casey, led by Matt Shaw, sweep a doubleheader against the Milwaukee Brewers on Tuesday at Wrigley Field. Look, Owen Casey drove in 4 runs in the 2 games. He had the 2 biggest hits in game 1, a 2-run single in the second inning, and then a solo homer later in that game to give the Cubs much-needed insurance. Matt Shaw legged out a triple, had a couple of hits, was just pumping his fists, screaming. It may sound a little bit crazy to you, but that's what this team needs. It's not about the FanGraph projections the rest of the year and the veterans versus this. They just need a spark. They need a spark. They're in a rut, and they need a spark, and those 2 guys sparked them today. Jamison Tyone was excellent in the second game to lead the Cubs to a victory. Cubs bullpen did the job in both games, and maybe, just maybe, this could be the turnaround that we've been hoping for. Cubs sweep a doubleheader against the Brewers. Will try and take the series on Wednesday night against Mizorowski and the Brewers. They also play again on Thursday. So 2 chances to take 3 of 5 in this series. Let's go.
And the Mets dominated the Nationals.
The New York Mets starting pitching is now building some momentum, and they keep on passing the baton. Tonight, it was David Peterson avenging himself. Last 2 times out against the Braves and the Guardians. Not the standard that David Peterson had been setting over the course of the season, back to what we expect from him. 8 innings of 1-run ball, matching his season high in strikeouts with 10, filling up that strike zone, getting the strikeout, relying on the ground ball, got a double play in this game, taking the baton from Clay Holmes, who took the baton from Nolan McLean, and this rotation is building some momentum. And oh yeah, the Mets offense, 8 runs, 4 home runs. Mark Vientos with a homer for the 2nd straight game. Everything right now is coming up New York Mets. They win their 3rd game in a row, and perhaps they are getting hot at just the right time.
Joe Flacco helped lead the Browns to the playoffs 2 seasons ago. Now, after a brief stint with the Colts, he's back to Cleveland and has been named QB1. Locked On Browns host Spencer German reacts to the news.
All right, we all knew it was coming, but now it's official. Joe Flacco will be the Browns starting quarterback week 1 of the season. The team announced it on Monday via their own sort of press release and made it official. Now, this isn't all that surprising. Flacco has been taking the first team reps throughout most of camp. We know that. He's taken the majority of those. Flacco has also been, I don't even want to say the most consistent, because I do think Shedeur Sanders has been the most consistent of the quarterbacks. But I think that Joe Flacco has been the most, like, you know, when he needs to have a good day, or when there was a good day to be had, it was normally him who was making the big time throws, moving the offense up and down the field. And I think no day defined that more than what we saw on day 2 against the Philadelphia Eagles first team defense, where he was slicing and dicing his way to the end zone and just making all the big time throws. Like, nobody made those major, like the head turning throws and the ones that made you go, ooh, there's still something there, or that's an NFL level throw, more than Joe Flacco did. And so it's not all that surprising that he wins this job. He also kind of had a first round bye in the quarterback competition regardless. Didn't really do much during minicamp. Didn't really do much at the start of training camp. They were just kind of holding him out while the other guys got acclimated, learned the playbook, all these different things, because they knew what to expect from Joe. And I talked about that at length. The idea that, yeah, you know, Joe Flacco is Joe Flacco. He's run this offense before. He knows the system. He was here before. He's comfortable in it. All those things apply. And so you didn't need to see a ton from him early on in this process. He also was the only quarterback in this group that didn't end up getting hurt in some capacity. And so that obviously helped his cause as well, because I do think the team believed that Kenny Pickett would be more of a challenge to him. This is not how I always envisioned this going. Like for a team trying to win now, I could have seen it going different ways. I think there was a stretch of time, speaking of Kenny Pickett and the team's love for him, there was a stretch of time where I felt Kenny Pickett maybe did have the organization's belief and they thought he would win the job. And I think he started training camp pretty strong, where it was like, okay, maybe we are going to have a competition on our hands. And then it all obviously dissolved pretty quickly once he dealt with this hamstring issue. I still have my doubts about Kenny Pickett. I've had my doubts about Kenny Pickett from the beginning, but he didn't get a fair shake because the injuries kept him from having that opportunity. And Joe Flacco was always kind of the safety net in this quarterback room, where like if all else fails, if the rookies aren't ready, or if the team felt the rookies aren't ready, and if Kenny Pickett were to get hurt like he did, or he just doesn't materialize, okay, we know that we have Joe Flacco sort of waiting in the wings as our safety net, as our safeguard, all those different things apply. And so he's the guy. And I will say this from the beginning, Flacco made sense from where this team is at as well. It's a team, as I've said a ton, is trying to win now with some veterans and players that are in the primes of their career, like a Myles Garrett, but also some guys at the tail end of their career who aren't trying to go out on a note of not trying to go out with a wasted season like Joel Bitonio, where you want a guy that can win you games now, help you compete now, while also making it pretty obvious with the way they drafted this year and the young guys that they've brought in, that they are trying to pivot and lean more into a bit of a rebuild here. And so Flacco's kind of the perfect quarterback for that type of situation. You have no commitment to him after this season. It's a one-year deal. You see what you get out of it. And then, next year you can draft your franchise quarterback if you don't think either of these rookies are the franchise quarterback. You also know you have those two rookies waiting in the wings to turn things over to once we get to a point in the season where maybe things aren't going in the right direction, or if they lose a lot of games early on, now all of a sudden you can pivot and go, okay, we got these rookies. Let's see what we got in these guys and sort of evaluate them the best you can before the end of the season gets here.
Which fantasy wide receiver should be your ride or die picks this season? Locked On Fantasy Football host Vinny Iyer and Michelle Maggi share their picks. Davante Adams, and one that might surprise you.
Yeah, I'm going with a oldie but a goodie. It's Davante Adams. Now, he's going as wide receiver 17. This is unusual territory for him. He's not used to being this low. And even last year when we were kind of, is this maybe the end? Is it going to slow down? What's going to go on with the Raiders? He translates that into wide receiver 10 production, tied, by the way, with some heavy hitters right there with Mike Evans and CeeDee Lamb. So that's the kind of production you're getting. They were wide receiver 10. Now, there's no reason to think he should be 7 spots lower this year. Now, he got it done with some questionable quarterback play with the Raiders. Then he went and got his old friend Aaron Rodgers. Well, if you can have an old quarterback like Aaron Rodgers, I think an old quarterback like Matthew Stafford is ideal for him. And look, we're going to take Sean McVay at his word that Matthew Stafford's going to be out there, but Davante Adams just produces. He's going to get out there and do what you want. And look, he's a very good touchdown scorer, and I think they missed that element a little bit in this Rams offense. You figure him and Puka Nacua are going to dominate targets. They're going to figure out tight end a little bit. We'll see. There'll be a big drop-off to Tutu Atwell and some of these other receivers that they use. But you can expect Nacua and Adams to gobble up targets. And the Rams, by the way, have 205 vacated targets at wide receiver. So this is an opportunity here. And that's with Nacua still on the team. So basically, Adams is going to eat a lot of targets up for Stafford. Look, if it pivots to the guy that didn't quite work out with him, Jimmy Garoppolo in Las Vegas, I'm still okay with it because he is just a great target who gets open all over the field. You still have to account for Nacua. The fact that Adams is operating behind Nacua, like he's always been the guy, I think they're equal number ones to me. And Nacua is going very high. We know the top 6 in many drafts, but it shouldn't be a tumble all the way to wide receiver in 17, especially the production. Again, I've looked at it all season long that Nacua and Adams are kind of a slightly cheaper version what you can get with Jamar Chase and T. Higgins. I think if you also put in Amon-Ra St. Brown and Jameson Williams, these are all explosive combos that you can get all over the board. But wide receiver 17 is just too low for me, given that there's a very good chance Adams returns to double-digit touchdown status this year. And if that's the case, then you're cooking, because he's going to see the targets all over the field. He's actually gotten better, I think, as he's gotten older in terms of stretching the field. So I love it. Again, however you break it down, Adams, I think, has one more